Namaste and welcome to a reading on the Ashtavakra Gita. We saw in the earlier segment that the circumstances and the context to the Ashtavakra Gita, the scripture itself, a little bit on the background of King Janaka, and a little on the translation that I will be reading by Bart Marshall. Today I would like to share a little bit about the great sage Ashtavakra himself, the one who is ascribed to the authorship of Ashtavakra Gita, or what is called the Ashtavakra Samhita. As mentioned, though there isn't much definitive information on this great sage, it is documented that sage Uddalaka, also known as Uddalaka Aruni, was a very learned rishi. He was a famous teacher of the scriptures and the Vedas. He had a daughter named Sujata and a much younger son named Shvetaketu. He gave his daughter in marriage to his favorite disciple Kahoda. A son named Ashtavakra was born to sage Kahoda and Sujata. As already stated, Ashtavakra was born with deformities. Many texts carry the details and circumstances of how Ashtavakra was cursed by his father while still in his mother's womb, that he will be born crippled. While I'm not going into that, what is of particular interest and is being shared here and is very pertinent to the verses that we will be hearing of the Ashtavakra Gita is how a handicapped boy of 12 under very peculiar circumstances walks in, or rather limps in, to the court of King Janaka and makes a plea for clemency for his father, who has lost a spiritual debate and has been sentenced to death by drowning. Perhaps it is his prenatal environment where he is exposed to the teachings of spiritual greats like his maternal grandfather Uddalaka Aruni, his uncle Shvetaketu, his parents Kahoda and Sujata, and the very fact of his being born with physical deformities that enables him to realize the truth very early. His piercing wisdom and clear seeing in the very first meeting with King Janaka and his court clearly reveals the young Ashtavakra as a knower of Brahman. The story goes something like this. I may paraphrase a bit. When the young boy Ashtavakra arrived at the king's court to ask for clemency for his father, he literally dragged himself across the court. The king's men and ministers looked at him and laughed because of his awkwardness and physical deformities. Ashtavakra first looked on in silence and then broke into smiles. Everyone became shocked. Everyone was shocked when questioned about his identity and reason for the visit to the king's court, and also his pleased expression when he was obviously being derided by everyone in the court. The young lad Ashtavakra responded that he was disappointed to find only shoemakers in the assembly instead of wise men, because shoemakers invariably only look at the body made of matter, which is equivalent to leather and skin, and rarely enter into spiritual or metaphysical contemplation to see what lies beyond the body. Ashtavakra told the king that his counselors were only seeing his body coated with skin. They did not see his true self. They had no realization of the soul and the supreme truth. They were making judgments based on superficial information only. This was the occupation of shoemakers, was it not? To judge appearance by the smoothness or roughness of skin. Ashtavakra concluded that perhaps he had wasted his time coming to the assembly. King Janaka and everyone in the assembly became deeply affected and awakened from unconsciousness upon hearing the words of Ashtavakra. The king immediately recognized that this was no ordinary teenager. He was one awake to Brahman. The king bowed to Ashtavakra, the realized being. He escorted Ashtavakra to his own throne and washed his feet with his own tears. Of course, Ashtavakra, the one who knew he was not his body and was always free from what he was not, went on to become one of the wisest Vedic sages and inspired many by challenging them to think differently, or perhaps to not think at all, or to not believe one's thoughts at all. This story, in a way, demonstrates the young boy Ashtavakra's clear understanding and embodiment of two great Vedantic principles that he had imbibed from a very young age, fueled perhaps by his exposure to the highest truth from a young age, and also by the challenges of his physical deformities. One, I am different from what I experience, and the other, whatever I am not, I am free from it. In contemporary times, we see that whatever is experienced is taken to be reality. So if one is experiencing suffering, or thoughts such as, I am so small, I am so bad, I am horrible, one is not able to see that what is being experienced is different from what I am. I am not that which I am experiencing. If we can fully comprehend this important truth, that I am not what I experience, it will end our need for approval and assimilation at any cost, and end the feeling of being lost in the world when rejected or dejected. So seeing that I am different from what I experience is the end of suffering. And the other principle that the young boy Ashtavakra embodied in that quote on that day is, whatever I am not, I am free from it. This clear seeing highlights the state of high and supreme awareness of the truth that sage Ashtavakra embodied as a young boy. With that, I'm ending this short introduction to the sage himself, and will commence reading the actual verses from the Ashtavakra Gita in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.